The root chakra, I use the tailbone as the focus. So all the way bottom of your spine. And it is, like I mentioned, this link between the physical body and your subtle body. So this is related to the energies of feeling safe in your body, fully present in this material reality, grounded. Security, material security in terms of home and money and those things we need in this plane of reality. It's really connected to all of those things.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bar Show. I am your host, Bolaabimbola, frequency alchemist, life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bars is where we have guest authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs from the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest, Lisa Erikson, all the way from Los Angeles in the United States. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Bola. I'm so glad that you invited me and really honored to be here. Thank you.
I love that you're here because we resonate on so many different things, and it's really nice to connect. I'll read a bit about your bio before we start, Lisa. Lisa Erikson is an energy worker and a meditation teacher specializing in women's energetics and sexual trauma healing. She's the author of Chakra Empowerment for Women and is certified in a variety of meditation, energy healing, and somatic modalities. She's a teacher with the International Buddhist organization called Tara Mandala, and she's a member of the Breath Network, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting holistic healing for sexual trauma survivors. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. I would love to know, Lisa, how did you get to this place where you're really now weaving energetics and really supporting your clients to move through, to transcend sexual trauma, which is a really powerful way of connecting to our truth. That is one of the modalities, I think, that really leaves us feeling worth less. And having energy healing to move us through it is really powerful. So I love that I love the work you do. But how did you get to this place where you are now not only transcending your healing, but also now providing this very powerful service?
Yeah, really, I could never have imagined when I started my training as an energy worker. And really, my work as an energy worker started from my own meditation experiences where I realized, energy was just the reality for me, feeling those energies from others. And so that gradually led me to these studies and then into energy work. I would have never guessed that I would end up working so much with sexual trauma. It really was almost like the universe decided that for me. The first workshop that I ran, every single woman in it had experienced some form of sexual trauma. And I realized, there really isn't any way for me to work in the space of women's empowerment in this world at this time without addressing it in some way. That this really just worldwide, our relationship to sexuality is unhealed. There's a lot of wounds, our relationship to power imbalances between the genders, and it impacts both men and women negatively. And it definitely impacts our LGBTQ community disproportionately, but women in particular hold a lot of these wounds that are really deep. And there's very few women that don't have some healing to do around these issues. And so I really started to dig deep into what kind of work would specifically help with those wounds.
I love that. And I totally agree with you. We never get to a place where we no longer have any healing to do. It's just a case of what resilience have we developed or cultivated, and what modalities do we have to help us to shift through that particular version that is experiencing that difficulty to release, whatever resistance is there. I would love to know, Lisa, what in your work has given you some kind of understanding of the difference in the energy that women embody as a gender and the energies that men embody, because I believe in the masculine and feminine essences which exist in us without whatever gender or no gender we may have. But what is your understanding of women energetics and men energetics?
Well, first of all, I want to say I agree with you 100%. We all have what we have labeled, right? Masculine and feminine energies within us. And really the journey is that we all claim the right to embody all of those and express them however we want. And that's definitely exactly where I come from. But it's interesting to me because the energy body intersects with the physical body and spirit, psyche. And we have kind of two traditions of energy body mappings. Some are spiritual traditions, which focus more on that level that is kind of ungendered, right? And some, though, link to the biological body. And there are cycles related to the type of physical body that you're in. Do you experience menstruation? Do you experience fertility? Do you experience menopause? Do you have higher testosterone, or etc.? So those do link into the chakras. In energy medicine, every chakra is associated with a gland. So the hormones were actually always really tied to the chakras as well. So there's this level at which it's ungendered, or it's all masculine and feminine energies and we all own it. And there's this level that at the body, it could be helpful to work with life cycles and phases. So when I talk about women's energetics, I'm often talking about how do our energetics change in a monthly cycle for those who experience that? How do they change when you're pregnant, postpartum? Perimenopause and menopause is a huge transit. And those in male biological bodies have similar transits. They just aren't so pronounced. It's something that is specific to being in a female biological body. We're very cyclical, and so our chakras are our energy body's more cyclical. So that work is kind of a whole branch of my work. Sometimes it intersects with the sexual trauma healing, but not so much. It's really more separate work around our life phases and cycles. And then the sexual trauma work, which is often about embodiment, because people who've experienced sexual trauma are often disconnected from their body. Like they disassociate because it's difficult to feel safe in their body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so powerful. Feeling safe in the body is key. And at the end of the day, we have to feel safe in order to really live our best lives. We living in fear is something that we have been conditioned to do, and we get our best outcomes when we come to embrace those, or really first of all understand, gain the knowledge, and then really come to embody the wisdom, which is different from the knowledge, that allows us to live our best lives. I want you to take us through this, Lisa. So you're talking about the energetics. This is the knowledge as well as the wisdom of it. Could you take us through what any woman listening to this who wants to understand how energy plays a role in her monthly cycles? This is obviously whether you're in menopause or postmenopause or premenopause, as we all have those times of the month where the 70% of water within us is actually flowing, is actually having high and low tides, just like the rivers around us. So we can come to understand how we as a physical body, and you're right, there is that physical body that has its energetics and the flow of energy, and it's about how that physical body begins to relate more and more to that spirit self. If a woman listening to this wants to understand a lot more about how the energetics of her body plays over the month, and how it relates to the spiritual energy, how would you explain that? And also relate it for the men in our audience as well.
Yeah, great question. For those still experiencing a monthly cycle, really, and there's variation, like with everything, there's variation between individuals in terms of how much they experience this cycle. But in general, as we move towards ovulation in the middle of our cycle, our sacral chakra, which is connected to our reproductive organs and gland-wise is connected to the ovaries, it's like it's getting more and more emanating. It is linked to creative energy. One form of that is to create physical life, but it's linked beyond that to all other kinds of creative energy. So there's sort of this building up where we really are emanating out, and we hit a kind of creative peak at that time. Often also a charisma peak, like you feel in general more, there's more energy emanating out. You're perhaps more charismatic, naturally more social, and more creative potentially. As we move into menstruation, there's this, so our energy body, for those listening, you can't see my hands, but it's like our energy body is like blooming like a flower. It's like a flower opening. And then it starts to pull inward, inward, inward. And there's this natural pull, especially right before menstruation. Our energy body is actually quite sensitive, and we're naturally more contemplative. It can be a time of heightened intuition, of heightened ability to problem solve. It's also potentially a time where you need to self-care more, pay more attention to energetic boundaries because you're more absorbent. You may be more sensitive to the energies of people around you, and especially any harsh energies, and you need to protect yourself. So it's really like this flower opening out and going in, feeling very external focused, very creative, and then very internal, contemplative, intuitive focused. You can learn to work with that cycle. You can also learn how to help aid any menstrual symptoms, maybe by helping with boundaries and things like that, if part of it is actually that you're picking up negative energies from others because you're particularly sensitive at that time. That can contribute. You know, from the studies I've seen, men don't have as pronounced a cycle that ties in that way monthly, but they do have other kinds of emotional cycles, and it can be really helpful for a man to track that. And especially over the course of their lifetime, as testosterone kind of stabilizes and then diminishes a little, there is a softening in the energy body that they can take advantage of to become more intuitive as well. And before that time, men often, it's helpful to focus more on flow. Like with men, I'll often work more with like flow between the chakras, because their energy body tends to be more solid. It softens as they age. But if I'm working with a younger man, helping them to soften younger is helpful. So that's kind of the basics, you know, and then there's a lot that happens for women, pregnancy and perimenopause. That's kind of, I could go into, but I don't want to talk too much at once. So that's kind of the basics. Yeah.
And it's really important to accept, isn't it? Acceptance, I think, is so key, because sometimes we may feel that one phase of the cycle is redundant, and we may resist the gifts that that phase has to offer us. And I love what you said about really coming to work with it. And I would love to know how you support your clients to really come to work with these cycles. Before I ask you to talk about, actually maybe first of all, what are the chakras? And you've mentioned it a couple of times, because I know some of the answer to that question as to how to work with these energies will be about the chakras. Could you explain to us? Let's explore what the chakras are for those who may want to understand what the different chakras are and how they flux and they change over the periods, over the cycles, and how we can come to utilize them and work with them, expand them, open them up, activate them up to live our best lives.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of energy work, and I use chakra mappings as the framework for mine, and there's a lot of other frameworks. And there's a lot of different chakra mappings from around the world. Some people don't realize that. There are variations, but I do mostly work with the 7 chakra map, which is the most common that you'll find. And it is 7 kind of energy centers right up the middle of the body, from really the base of your torso all the way up to the crown of your head. So kind of your tailbone all the way up to the crown of your head. You can think of it in terms of your energy body anatomy. They're like the organs, you know, like heart, stomach, etc. And then there's all these channels that carry that energy throughout your body and even into your aura, into how you emanate out. So each chakra, each of these 7, relates to different physical parts of the body and also relates to different emotions or states. And so depending on what you're working with, you might focus on one or the other to strengthen it. I mean, the one we think of most instinctually is the heart chakra or heart center in the middle of our chest. It's right in the middle of the 7. And predictably, it's linked to our capacity to love and be loved. And that includes self-love in terms of feeling worthy. And it has to do with our relationships, right? So that's a big one. For sexual trauma, I work a lot with the root chakra, the first chakra, because that's where the physical body links to the subtle body. So if someone has any patterns of kind of going away, they don't feel safe in their body, so they're always up in their head or even disconnected from this plane of reality, we're working with very gently trying to reconnect that physical body and that subtle body at the root chakra. So we might do a lot of root chakra grounding, earth work. But then in terms of the second part of your question with the menstrual cycles, we're working in the mapping I work with the neck chakra up from the root chakra. The root chakra, I work with the tailbone, neck chakra up in the pelvic bowl. So for women, it's literally right there in the cervical womb area. And you still have that chakra even if you've had a hysterectomy, right? But if you have a cycle, that is the chakra that's kind of opening and closing in the way I was talking about throughout your monthly cycle.
Mm-hmm. And if you could take us through the other 5 chakras, you've mentioned 3 actually. The other 3, the solar plexus. So if you just take us through those, I would love for those who maybe start from the root going up, for those who just want to get a better sense of the 7 chakras. I love that you use the chakras. I also use chakras in my work because there are certain limitations in the different chakras that will manifest in different experiences in our day to day. And when we release some of these, some of these tensions and some of this resistance within those particular chakras, we actually see an instant change as we align, as we receive, as we allow. We can actually see those changes in our experiences. So could you take us through the 7 chakras and what each of them really pertains to in the day to day?
Well, and let's try to do this like a little empowerment. I think I'll focus on the positive states as opposed to the blocks, like each chakra. And as we go through them, anyone listening, you could choose to focus there and just imagine you're cultivating those energies. And so then it becomes a little bit of a meditation. That's optional, but
sounds good.
Yeah, why not, right? So the root chakra, I use the tailbone as the focus. So all the way bottom of your spine. And it is, like I mentioned, this link between the physical body and your subtle body. So this is related to the energies of feeling safe in your body, fully present in this material reality, grounded. Security, material security in terms of home and money and those things we need in this plane of reality. It's really connected to all of those things. So just try to feel that for a moment. And then we move up to the sacral, which is in your pelvic bowl. So kind of between your hip bones, a little bit lower inside your pelvic bowl. And you can just kind of focus there gently if you're following along and visualize light. And this one is connected to sexuality, among other things, but really sexual energy. What is it as an energy? Sensuality and creativity, as I mentioned with the menstrual cycle. So this creative impulse, the ability to create, but also our emotions. And it's a very fluid chakra. So it's also the energies of fluidity and adaptability and pleasure, being able to really experience pleasure. And then we move to the third chakra, which kind of encompasses this whole navel and stomach area, solar plexus and navel area. And that really has to do with our personal power, our sense of self in the world, our boundaries. It's a chakra to focus on when you need to clear out energies you picked up that aren't good for you, or when you need to focus on boundaries and just feeling self-contained in yourself. It's also linear action, though. Discipline, being able to just do one task after another. It's kind of willpower as well. So also very important for functioning in this world. And then we come to the heart, which everyone wants to focus on. Love, compassion, your ability to feel lovable, to love yourself, to love others, beauty, even purity, really all kindness, and self-worth is so often the work there, feeling just worthy of love innately, not like you have to earn it. You just are, And then the throat, the vocal cords, or sometimes a little lower, but I like to focus on the vocal cords. And of course, as you can imagine, this one has to do with expression, but also our ability to hear people, because it's the mouth and the ears. So it's the whole communication. And there's other kinds of communication too, right? There's spirit communication and things like that. It has to do with all those forms of communication, really vibration, even sound, like chanting and singing, and all the ways that sound communicates through meaning or vibration. And then our third eye in our forehead, just above the midpoint of your brow line. I think of this as all the I words: intuition, imagination, insight, right? It's like both our ability to look inwards, but also our ability to intuit things, and also our ability to imagine, to visualize and vision a future for ourselves and our planet even. All the I words. And then our crown chakra, right where my hair clip is, at the back top part of your head, the rear frontal, and it kind of is more like a halo, like it's half in the head, half out. The spiritual chakra, it has to do with faith and belief, including self-belief. For those who are spiritual, it has to do with how you relate to spirit, whether that's within a religion or outside of it. If you're not religious, it has to do with like what brings meaning into your life. What is purpose and meaning and value in your life? What is your kind of founding system, right? So that's how those are kind of the basics of the seven as I work with them. Are there any differences for you? Because I know that there are different systems.
I love that. First, let me just thank you, Lisa. And I love the way you were led to lead that, to give that meditation, because there is a degree of understanding that those who are listening to this will have, or will be reminded of, or it will awaken. There will be an awakening of some kind as you talked about those different chakras going, because the release in my work also starts from that root chakra. We have to first of all clear the resistance in the way we have broken trust with our spiritual essence, with our true self. And sometimes you already know what chakra is requiring a release or an expansion just by looking at the experiences that are going on around you. For instance, if it's about relationships, a lot of my work is about understanding the areas of resistance and then using the energy healing to release and awaken and activate the meridians of the particular chakra that is related to that experience, that aspect of life. And this also tells us how there is such a connection between the what is in heaven or whatever you consider to be heaven, or whatever you consider to be that unseen world, and the physical world. It's, whatever is in that spiritual world is also in the physical world. And that is how I see the chakras and life. The chakras really represent that spiritual life, that spiritual life force, and any blockages in that, life force, any conditioning that is restricting it, will create some kind of experience in that outer reality. And coming to a place where we understand what what chakra or what aspect of the life force is requiring release, requiring love. Because energy healing is really about love. Is that unconditional love from that higher self, from universal energy. And we can come to allow. Sometimes we need the help. This is why we as energy practitioners know that we are there as vessels. It is the individual that allows the healing to happen. The client allows that resistance to be released with support, because this journey is not something that is easy. That physical reality can be quite intense, and this is going on all over the world at the moment, where we are experiencing a lot of different challenges. And it is when we realize that the challenges on the outside can be supported by the healing on the inside, the expansion on the inside, that we can really begin to experience magic. Things no longer have to appear the way anybody else is forcing it to be. We can be in the world, but not of the world, if you know what I mean. We can really come to shift that perspective and experience the version of self, energetic version of self, through those jumps that we have in healing the versions of self before and after that moment of understanding, of surrender, of allowing. That moment of allowance is actually a jump, and it shifts us into a different perspective, a different dimension, which is what Daily Soul Bytes, my book, is about. It's about the different perspectives of self, and how we can come to understand that just as there's shadow, there's also light. And we can come to allow ourselves to see the light or see the shadow, because sometimes we do need to release the shadow. And I'm going to ask you to talk about the sexual healing work, sexual trauma healing work that you do, because this is about us understanding the themes that we have come to explore, how we are conditioned by those themes to really align in a particular way. And there's no right or wrong. It's about understanding, giving it the meaning that it needs, and then transcending it, aligning to that light. That is also who we are. We are both the shadow and the light. So Daily Soul Bites, my book, talks about the different perspectives and how we can develop that self-awareness and activate an alignment to light for our best outcomes by using different modalities that are around us, including modalities that, like yours, sexual trauma healing. So I'd love you to talk about some of that, Lisa.
Yeah.
How do you work with your clients to release some of that imprint, to own it, accept it, show compassion? How does your service support those who have been through sexual trauma?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say I love everything that you just shared, because obviously we share a common sort of framework that, this light is naturally in you. It's your birthright. And if you're not experiencing it, something is just blocked, and we can learn to work with that, transform it, release it, see it more clearly. And then what's your natural birthright is already there. That light will come forth from whether you're thinking in terms of the center of every chakra or however you're thinking about it. It isn't something outside you have to go get. You just have to do the work to release it inside of you. And that's true empowerment for me, right? That is what I don't want someone dependent on me. I want to help them figure out how to do, I want to help show them how to do this for themselves, right? That's empowerment. So I love that. Specifically, the wounds or blocks or shadows that we might see with sexual trauma survivors, like we spoke about, not feeling safe in the body. So living in a constant state of fear. And that can look a lot of different ways. Hypervigilance, we talk about, where someone's just really kind of always receiving the world as if it's not safe, right? And perceiving it that way. And all their energy is going into that. So constantly worrying, right? Or sometimes people adopt almost a hyper strong navel chakra. It's like, I'll never be vulnerable again. I'll power through life like an island, right? And so then they're very blocked off to connection. They're trying to keep themselves safe. Or the other pattern is disassociating, kind of checking out, and then having real difficulty functioning in this 3D world in terms of taking care of themselves, because they are escaping whether it's addiction or it's other means. It just can't stay present. So then we're really trying to reestablish that feeling of connection to the body, being able to stay safe, those lower chakras. Sometimes there's shame and blame that are blocking someone's ability. They have blamed themselves. They've taken on shame. They feel alone. Working with transforming those shadows into self-love, really, and being able to hold that sense of self-love, self-worth as their foundation in their heart chakra. And that then gradually leads to beginning to feel more safe in the body. And a lot of the work that I do is like regular practices. I always think of it like physical therapy. Yes, there's healing that is like in the session, something happens and shifts. But really, you're trying to repattern the way you live day to day and how you experience the world. That takes repetition. Like you have to practice it day after day after day with chakra work, new thought patterns, new emotional patterns. You have to cultivate it day after day until it becomes your new default. So it's this balance of like healing that you receive all at once and work that you're doing day after day after day to shift your way of being in the world. Yeah.
I totally agree with you as to the practice, because the version of self that shifted yesterday is a different version today. And it's ongoing. Because sometimes we do a lot of work around the root chakra in 2009. Then 2010, we wonder, my goodness, why am I feeling unsafe again when I've done all this work? Because the version of self that is now emerging may very much be more open to intuition, may very much be much more open to love and to connection with the divine through the crown, but is again struggling with parts of the lower chakras. And so that work is ongoing, and that's why self-awareness is so key, and non-judgment, just the awareness, because nobody goes through life or nobody has come to a time when they no longer have anything to clear, because the versions of self that we're jumping into every time has a different struggle, has a different based on the law of attraction. We are attracting something into our lives. We've attracted the man that we want, or the woman that we want. We've attracted the job that we want, but there's maybe that job, suddenly it's, that job is a lot, further away from home than we would have loved. And, so there are aspects of that experience that is requiring us to release certain resistance within us. And sexual trauma, particularly, I think is an experience that has to do with connection and love. You're right. That trust, feeling safe. And really the biggest part, as you said, is the love. There is a misinterpretation of what love is, because I know I suffered from childhood sexual abuse, and it took me a long time to really come to understand what love is, because you lose that understanding of love, you lose the trust, you lose the sense of worth, and it really wipes you of that understanding of the oneness that you could be. It probably takes a bit longer than for other people who do not experience that trauma. So it's sexual trauma or any trauma in terms of emotional or physical or financial is really about reconnecting to self, understanding what is it that I can do that is different from this. Who am I apart from this? And I'd love you to really explain to us how these aspects, somebody who has gone through sexual trauma, who is experiencing a lot of this separation from self, how, if you could explore that for us, how in your work or from your perspective do these things impact on our day to day, and how do you support clients to actually begin to understand that oneness, that sense of connection, once again, which is not just the root chakra. I believe there is oneness in that entire energetic system, and it's about how do you support your clients to expand when they have been contracted and reduced to a state of fear, a state of victimhood. How do you get them to that place of empowerment?
Yeah, it is really individual which chakras you're going to focus on first, but I think the most common is heart and then root and sacral. And the heart is about that self-worth piece, relationship to self, trying to reestablish that, really helping someone to center in that heart. And maybe we're working and helping them name what are the shadows that block your ability to feel love towards yourself. Do you feel shame? Do you feel undeserving? You feel less than? Those are the kinds of things. You're just holding this pattern of not being enough, right? And then how does that translate into behavior? Sometimes it's people pleasing. Sometimes it's like someone will only love me if I'm just like making myself indispensable to them, trying to morph myself into who they want me to be. And so people will not even know who they are, right? They've learned to just kind of try to become who they think the other person wants them to be. And so then it's like letting go of that. That often involves throat chakra and navel chakra work, etc. So we're working on relationship and that whole piece. And then with the root and sacral, earlier you used the word resilience. And to me, we can't ever guarantee that any of us is always safe all the time in this world. But what you can establish is your sense of resilience. I can basically do my best to keep myself safe. If something unexpected happens, I can handle it. That's resilience. I'll be able to handle it. And if you have that self-faith, and that's resilience, then you don't have to live in fear anymore, right? And that has a lot to do with root and sacral, feeling like you can stay grounded and you can stay fluid, which is the sacral chakra, building up that sense of whatever emotion comes up or whatever experience happens, it's not too big for me. I can handle it. I have this basic grounding in myself to be able to adjust and adapt. So I think that's most often what I'm working on: resilience with root and sacral, self-worth and relationship to self in the heart, people pleasing in the throat and navel, like all of this stuff. Longer term, it can be third eye and crown in terms of visioning and hope, because sometimes people have just totally given up on the idea that anything can ever be different. So that is awakening a lot of energies in the third eye and crown. So that's kind of, in the end, you may be working every single chakra, and the order has to do with that particular person and what shadows they're experiencing as the most pronounced.
Fantastic. That's so powerful. I love your diversity of work and the experience that you have and the understanding that you have of chakras, because they are a powerful aspect of our energy meridians, and we can come to understand how they work, how they impact on our day to day, and how we can develop that resilience when we sense that there is a block or there is a change. That physical reality is always changing. There's in a constant state of flux. The bodies, our versions are always changing in a constant state of flux. What we have that is unchanging, that is always present, is that inner life force within us. And the chakras are meridians that connect that, that life force within us, that form a system of the life force within us. So working with the chakras and using the modalities, the meditation, that you use, Lisa, is really, really powerful. And I really, admire your work, and it's a slight variation from mine, but I've come to you a deep admiration for how you specifically focus on expanding the meridians, those chakra meridians, in a way that leads from a place of fear to a place of empowerment. Where can people find you, Lisa, when they want to connect with you? And tell us about whatever is coming up for you at this time that people can our audience can connect with.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bola. But first of all, I just want to mirror that back to you and say, I feel the same way. I can feel from you the depth of your work and understanding. So I really honor, there needs to be more and more of us doing this work, right? Because there's just so many people that could benefit in this way. So I really appreciate, and that you're sharing and that you're willing to engage and share in this way. I really appreciate it through your show. And my website is enlightenedenergetics.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Chakra Empowerment. And I'll share this show there, those places when it launches, right? So maybe you'll see it there, anyone listening. And really there you can find my schedule. I do private sessions by Zoom, but I also do workshops. So there's workshops coming up depending on when this airs, and on intuition development, on women's energetics, on perimenopause, energy work for perimenopause. So all of those could be of interest depending on what someone is dealing with right now.
Oh, that is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you again for connecting with me today, Lisa.
Thank you, Bola. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.
Yes, it's evening here in London. It's always interesting when we connect with each other on online, how time exists, but we are still one. We are all, we still feel that oneness, whatever time of the day it is. So that's wonderful. So I want to encourage our audience to connect with Lisa and to really come to understand the different energetics, regardless of the phase of life, because each and every one of us is an energy being, and we can come to understand that energy being a lot more and use it to live our best lives. And also to invite you to connect with Daily Soul Bytes, the book, and to connect with me if you want to work with me. I do quantum Reiki sessions online as well, or in person here in my London studio. And to ask you to subscribe to Daily Soul Bytes show. We have new episodes every Wednesday. We have experts every Wednesday, outstanding experts like Lisa, who you can connect with and get to understand more about what life offers. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes show. Bye-bye.